In January 2025, my brother Ed and I spent some time in a cabin in Pine Mountain State Park with our father, Charles Dishman. We talked to Dad about his life growing up in the hills of Appalachian, Kentucky. Here's some of what we recorded while there.
My name is Charles L. Dishman, and I'm at Pine Mountain State Park, Pineville, Kentucky, January the 6th, 2024.
2025, right?
25. I got used to 24. Well, we're on vacation. I'm here with my two sons, Les and Eddie.
Were there any local events or festivals or fairs or anything that you can remember when you were a kid that you might have attended with your brothers and sisters or friends or family?
Well, at Dorton's Branch, we rented from a couple. They owned a grocery store, and each Halloween, the man he would put on Halloween, and he would dress everything up in Halloween. We'd dress up and go to his store, and he'd do things for the kids, you know, and he'd give you prizes, stuff like that, if you could do certain things. I remember he had a big wash tub. He'd fill it full of apples, and if we get down and get one of them with our teeth and pull it out, you get the apple and you get a prize. Yeah. Well, another thing up at Crocket, I really there's another store. We'd always go down there if we'd have any extra money. Oh, you get a dime. You can buy a lot of stuff with a dime. And there's one item down there that I always wanted, but I never did get it. They'd have these glass trains full of candy. And for some reason, I never did get one. I always wanted one, but never did get one. And my younger brother, he's buried up at Crocket. He was 3 years younger than me.
What was his name?
Virgil.
He died as an infant?
Yeah, and I had a sister died, her name was Virginia. And when we got down to Dorton Branch, when I got up around 10 years old, they had Christmas parades at Pineville, and I remember one time we got behind that fire truck, and we followed that fire truck all the way to another community, and there's a bridge went across the Cumberland River. And I always remember that Santa Claus said, "All right, boys and girls, we getting ready to go to North Pole. You better go back to your mom and dad." And I thought we was getting ready to go to North Pole. And if I could go back and live one day in the past, that's when my father was alive. That would be around 1945, something like that. And I'd meet him. He'd get off the bus. He'd go to Pineville for some reason. And when he get off that bus, he'd stop right in front of the house, and I'd always meet him. And for some reason, he said he's going to buy me one of them buses. And I'd ask him, I said, "Dad, where's the bus at?" He'd say, "Son, so that bus got away from me again." He'd always say that.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah, I can remember like it happened yesterday.
Dang it, son, that bus got away from
Yeah, that bus got away from me again. And
You'd like to talk to him again?
yeah, oh Lord, yeah.
Do you miss him?
I had a great father, fond memories.
He took care of you?
Yeah, he did. I got 3 whippings, but I deserved it. It's all in memory. I have 3 whippings from him, and I deserved every one of them. Mom done all. I got a bunch from her up till I was about 14 years old, and then I guess she said I was getting too old to get whipped. I can remember the last time she whipped me.
You want to talk about that?
Well, I remember one time that's when television first came out in that area. And old black and white, and had so much snow on them, you couldn't see nothing hardly. But down in Pineville, there was a hardware store down there, and they'd have television sitting in the window, and they was real clear. And one particular day, I told my mom I was going to go. It was about 10 of us boys. We was going to go over to a friend of my house, over where we used to live at. We just, where we lived at, you could almost throw a rock and hit them people's house. They had a barn, and they had some animals. They had some cows, and they kept hay up in there. And sometimes we'd go up there and sleep in them barn. And I told Mom that I was going to go over, and we was going, a bunch of boys, we were going to go over and sleep in that barn and sleep that night. Wasn't going to go nowhere. I was just going to go there. We all had in mind to go down to Pineville and watch television. And they'd turn it off at about 11 o'clock, and we'd have to go back home. So we went down there, there'd be 50, 60 people down watching TV, maybe more than that.
Standing outside?
Yeah, sitting down and police didn't bother you. That's the reason they had them television there for. So, so people would, come by and see that,
And maybe later buy one.
Yeah, And heck, television back then, my goodness, it almost cost a fortune. And we went down there and watched television till they turned it off. And we came back. We had walked about 2 miles. There wasn't no problem for us. We went up railroad, walked up railroad, and when we got to Dorton branch, we had to go up a hill and go way around that way, and almost to his house, where we was going to sleep at, we seen a light coming behind us, and I said, I bet that's Leland, my brother, and I said, I better go hide, because he sees me and he'll wonder why I'm out that late. He could do things like that, but I couldn't, because I was a lot younger. And he was, I guess I was probably about 12 or 13 years old. Yeah, about 13 years old. And I went up on the hill and hid, and them boys didn't do nothing. They just sat there. And if they'd went and hid too, it wouldn't have no problem. But Leland knowed I was with him, and Leland said, "Okay, boys, where's Charles at?" They said, "We don't know." I guess they said, "We don't know," but he hollered for me. And after he got gone, this girl that he was dating lived right around the hill there, Dorothy Baker. I can remember her name. And I seen her sister about 5 or 6 years ago down there at that Dorton Break church. And she was a younger sister. And so after that, we went over on that there and got in the barn and went to sleep that night. And next morning, I came back, went over to Rock Hollow, and Leland had told Mom. And boy, she met me down there to come across that road and whipped me all the way to the house with a switch. Made whips on my leg. That's the last time I ever remember her whipping me, last time I ever remember.
Okay, Dad, why don't you tell me about the neighborhood that you lived in when you were growing up? And I know you lived in a couple of different locations, so maybe start with
when I was born, when you were
young, and then as you grow up, like
when I was born.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it recording now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was born in Straight Creek, Kentucky, Bell County. And when we lived there, I don't know how long we lived there, probably less than a year. Can't remember, too young. Then we moved to a little place called Carey. And then we moved from there to Crocket, Kentucky. That's where I first started going to school. I went to the first grade there, and my teacher was named Ms. May. And we lived there about 5 years, I'd say. And we moved from there to Dorton's branch. And I lived there till I was about 12 years old, 12 or 14. Then we moved from there to a place called Brock Hollow. And from there, I moved to Paris, Kentucky.
Okay. We visited Crocket just a couple of days ago. What specifically can you tell me about that place?
Well, it was Crocket was it was actually Fields, Kentucky, but we always call it Crocket for some reason. There was 2 coal companies there where they mined coal, and my dad worked at a place called Coleman's.
What was Coleman's? What business was that?
Coal.
Coal mine?
Mining coal.
Okay. So your father was a coal miner?
Yeah.
What was his name?
James Edward.
What else can you tell me about Crocket?
Well, I was just about 6 years old when we moved from there. I got some fond memories of there.
We went there a couple of days ago. What's different about it now as compared to when you were there that you can remember?
Now and then, all the coal is gone. The coal temples is gone. The houses is gone. And the stores is gone.
There was still one coal operation there, wasn't there?
Yeah, but I don't know what that is. I don't know the name of it. But the name of that coal company, it was Crocket. And we always call the whole community Crocket, but it was actually Fields. Fields.
So, do you recall how far your father had to commute from home to go to work?
Oh, he'd walk probably half a mile.
Okay, so he walked every day?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I'd meet him, coming off a hill, and he'd give me, he'd always save me an old biscuit.
Okay, so that biscuit story, that was in Crocket?
Yeah, that was in that same. You remember that when we went up the hill, that tipple? Mm-hmm. I'd meet him right in the area. Mm-hmm. That's where I'd meet him at. He would come off the hill there, and there was a path, People walked us so many times, he was just like a footpath.
Was there a school and a store there?
Yeah, they had their own store. They called them commissaries, and they sold furniture, food, about anything you needed. That's where you. And first, the coal companies paid you in scrip. It wasn't money. Boy, I haven't got it. And that's how they got paid. And you had to get your business, do your business in them stores.
And was it while he was working at that coal company? Is that when he died?
No, I guess he got disabled.
Oh, so he was disabled.
That was probably That was probably in 1946, and then we moved down to Dorton's branch, and we lived there about 2 years, and he died, you know.
So he didn't work for a period of time before he died?
About 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
That 2 years seemed like it was a lifetime then, that 2 years, you know, for a child.
Sure. Okay, Dad, did you have any hobbies or things that you really like to do as a child?
Yeah, I had plenty of hobbies. I like to explore the mountains. You know, there's a lot of mountains around where I lived at. Me and my friends, we'd go up there and stay all day, just seeing animals, just getting wild grapes to eat, and just wading in creeks, swimming, and
What about movies and television or comic books or anything like that? Did you like anything like that?
yeah, when I was yeah, I'd like to go to movies, see them old westerns, and we could go to a theater when I was 10 up to 15 years old, and I can't remember going to movies after 15, 16. I probably did, but I can't remember too much. But we'd go. There was 2 theaters in that town, Pineville, and one of them showed those B movies, westerns, mostly westerns, and the other theater would show mostly modern movies.
How much was it for a movie?
And well, you'd always have 2 movies, and a serial, and a cartoon.
For how much?
I could go for 15 cents.
And who would you go with?
Well, probably some of my friends. If I didn't go with my friends, I'd go with myself.
Do you remember any specific movies that you went with your buddies?
Well,
What's your favorite movie?
well, there was 4 or 5 cowboys I used to like. Hopalong Cassidy and Lash Rule and Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and there's probably some more, but I can't remember.
What about comic books? Did you like
And those serials that I was talking about, they would show part of it one day, about 15 minutes, and they'd stop, and next week they'd show the rest of it. They'd do that to get you hooked on them serials, and then you'd come back. And
Can you remember one serial specifically that you liked?
not really,
Any actors that were in those serials that you liked?
Some of them old movies, they'd like an ending. He'd shoot Earl. It was some 3-dimension movies.
3Ds?
3D. And I would duck, because that Earl looked like it was going to come right to your head. Yeah. It looked so real.
Yeah.
It looked so real.
What else besides arrows?
And Tommy Hawks. That's about all, you know, I guess.
What about comic books? Did you like comic books?
Yeah, comic books, yeah.
What were your favorite comic books?
Superman, probably Superman, and Batman. Mostly like
So you were a DC Comics guy?
DC, yeah. Yeah, I had plenty of them.
Where did you get your comic books at?
I got them out of the city dump.
Oh, okay, you got to explain that.
Well, the city would, if a drugstore or something couldn't sell them, they would tear part of the front off, and it only cost 10 cents, a comic book would. And they'd bring them up there in box full of them. Wasn't nothing, looked like brand new. And heck, we just get them, I'd get them 15, 30, 40 at a time. Nothing wrong with them. I'd read them all and probably throw them away, I guess. I wish I'd kept some of them. I wish I would have, but you know, when you're young that way, you don't think ahead.
How old were you when you were doing this?
Probably 10, 12 years old. But when you're young, you think of that day. You don't think of tomorrow. And I wish I'd kept some of them.
Do you remember when you had your first girlfriend?
I was always bashful. I remember some girls would get my hand and hold it, and I'd be so bashful. Pretty girls too. And this one girl, she'd always send her brother down and me come down there to, you know. She was a beautiful young girl too, but I didn't start dating the girls till I was about 17, 18 years old.
Do you remember your first one? Just her name?
Yeah.
Okay, what was her name?
It was Marie.
What was her last name? Do you remember her last
Sturdivant.
name? Okay.
She developed. She went to Alabama and got married and couldn't have no kids. And in about 30 years old, she developed cancer and died. And her sister, there was about a year and a half difference. And after that, she got cancer and died. And there's about 3 or 4 of them girls got cancer and died. Well, something coming out good. What kind of cereals that you got, Les? I didn't eat none of it. No, I've been eating that Raisin Bran. I like that raisin, but it's hard for me to chew them raisins. They're hard, you know, not dentures, you know. And growing up, a typical meal, well, just nothing like they got now, because we had 3 girls and three boys. That's 6 of us. And I can't remember what Mom had when we was real young. I can't remember. But later, you know, we didn't have just the basic food, you know. Nothing fancy. Mom made a lot of pies, you know, especially blackberry pie and peach pie. Called them cobblers. Boy, they were good. And she would, I'd go up pick berries, and I could only remember selling berries one time. I'd pick 5 or 6 gallons a day. Back then, there was wild berries everywhere, blackberries. And they were wild, but you get up on top of Pine Mountain, and they was twice as big and twice as sweet. I don't know why they was so big up there. I guess all that rich land, that rich soil. Because the soil was black, because all those tree limbs and leaves for hundreds and hundreds of years just keep falling and turning into dirt. And the soil was black. And I probably reason it grows so bigger, you know. And but they didn't grow down in the valley, just on top of the mountain. Them big blackberries. And boy, they were good. One blackberry is that big, Les. It was. Is that my phone? Another thing about that, there's a bridge went across the creek there. It's no longer there now. And the road that went in that community, it's no longer there. You get in that community another way. But that bridge, it was all the way you get into the Dorton's branch from the main road. And we used to jump off that bridge in 4 feet of water, about 30 feet high. And I've seen boys dive off of it in 4 feet of water. It was one particular boy. He was probably, we was 12 and 13 years old, and this other boy was probably about 18 or 19. He'd come over, real slim. We always called him Tarzan. And when you call him Tarzan, boy, it made him feel good. He'd get up on that rail and dive off of it in 4 feet of water. But he knew how to do it. He would just, you talking about, no, he had 4 or 5 brothers.
He was older than you?
Oh, yeah. And we rented from his mom and dad house. And after I got grown and married and lived in Paris, I'd come back, and one of his brothers became a good friend of mine. I'd go to his house.
Who was that?
I can't think of their name.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'm trying to say Baker, but it's not Baker.
Do you have any other friends that you want to talk about before we move on?
Oh, yeah, I had a lot of them over there.
Anybody in particular?
Some of them I can't remember their names. Overton, Sailor, best friend, my goodness. J.C. Helton, he's probably my best friend. And that guy, if you didn't have no money, he had a dime, he'd give you half of it. That's what he was. He was that good a friend. He was. If he had a dime and you didn't have a penny, he'd give you a nickel of it. You don't see too many people like that, you know it. But I mean friend. I'm not talking about son or brother. And another thing, me and my brother and a couple more boys, we used to go up behind the house and camp out at night. We had a little tent, and we'd go up there and build us a fire and camp out. At one time, like a beautiful home there, and they had a swimming pool there. And that was around 1950, and probably 50 years before that, they was probably like a mansion up on that hill, because they had the ruins there, the walls, and they had the swimming pool up on that. But all that was left was the walls of the house and that swimming pool. Everything else was gone. And I imagine that was a beautiful home then, wasn't it? It had to be all that. If you're not going to give them no shack and have a nice swimming pool, are you? And we go up there in that pool and camp out there and all night and have a big fire, probably tell stories and stuff and eat snack, I guess.
Okay, Dad. What about favorite movies or actors or television shows? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well,
not just now, throughout your life.
Well, my favorite, I've always liked them old black and white movies, and especially in B movies, and more detective.
Yeah.
And there's one I really like, a detective, but I've seen it so many times I can tell you about every scene in it. Is Lloyd Nolan, and he had several. He called his name. He played as a private detective, and he called his name in the movie was Shane. And it was a good, clean movie, and he probably in his 40s then. Now, later on, he acted up to about 70 years old. I'd say he's been dead a long time ago, but he'd be over 100 years old if he'd lived.
What's his name?
Lloyd Nolan.
Anybody else that you like?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of them old B movies, westerns, and a lot of detectives, black and white detectives. And I like that modern movie, well, it was probably in the 80s, was, I can't think about it. If she was a woman, she was a writer, wrote stories about fiction, stuff like that. And but she was a good friend of the sheriff in that town. He was up in, I think the town was up in Maine, and it told it named the town. But let's see, what was that? It was came from England. She had that accent, and I seen her played one or two Western movies. But boy, I like that show. It's still on reruns.
You like Quickly Down Under, didn't you?
Well, I've seen it so many times. I just don't. Then I like them old Western, them old detectives, you know, and some of them old monster movies, you know, like Bela Lugosi and Peter Cushing. He played a lot of them old English movies, you know, and a lot of him. He played in them kind of movies.
What about World War II movies like those?
Well, not too good.
What's your favorite TV show?
TV.
Right now.
Well, I don't watch anything modern. I don't.
What are you watching now, though?
I just watch them old movies made in the 40s and 50s and 30s.
Yeah.
I don't watch it. Huh?
What kind of music do you listen to now?
Country gospel and southern gospel. There's a bunch I listen to every night. Watch them every night on YouTube. They call it Redeem Quartet. Redeem, and they're just about 25 or 30 years old. And boy, they're good. There's two of them, two brothers. There's two sets of brothers on it. And there's four of them, and two brothers and another two brothers.
Did you ever like rock and roll?
Well, when I was young, I did.
Like
There's a bunch of them. I like the way with some music, you know, but now I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't. And I like that Tom T. Hall music. Yeah. I like two of them. I can say is one of them is "Old Dogs and Children in Watermelon Wine." That's a beautiful song. And the other was "The Day That Tom Delaney Died." That's a good one too. The day that Tom Delaney died. Said he went out and hung his head and cried. And it was a true story about where he grew up in eastern Kentucky. There's a guy that he played the guitar, and he played in a couple of bands, but he died real young. But he never did get it big, you know. He just played in local bands, you know, and never did make it big in like records, you know. I guess the reason it says the day that Tom Delaney died, I guess. But he talked, that was a true story. And he wrote a song about him. And he made a #1 hit on that. That's a #1 record. Well, I guess memory, it makes me smile, always smile. When I'd go fishing and swimming. I tell you what, I can remember the first day I went fishing. And it seemed like it just happened yesterday. I was 9 years old, and when I sat down on a log out in the creek, Straight Creek, and it run into Cumberland River, beautiful creek. And those creeks back then, they were clean. You'd almost drink out of them. Every boy and girl, well, mostly boys, swim. Them creeks be full of boys swimming. And catch fish. And I can remember the first day I went swimming. I was 9 years old. I couldn't swim. Some big boy threw me in the creek, and it was probably 4 or 5 feet deep. And if I didn't learn to swim then, I wouldn't be here today. I learned to swim, dog paddle to the bank.
So that's a good memory for you?
Oh yeah, I can remember just like it happened yesterday. And then after that, I learned I swim. And just about 20, 30 feet above it, underneath the bridge, there was a big slate rock. It was almost slick as glass. I'd say boys been on that probably 100 years. And that rock was so slick, and we'd dive off it in the creek. And I'd say from one end of the slate to the creek was probably about that wide. Can you see that? And when you get that one from that top of that rock to the creek, probably about 4 feet. And that part of the creek was about 5 feet deep. It was over your head. And sandy bottoms. You didn't have to worry about getting your feet cut. Sandy, always sandy. And let's see.
And was the water cold?
We're going to swim in 1st of April. You imagine it's cold then.
Well, was it cold?
Sure it was. But we didn't care. A boy 10 years old, he don't care.
Fast moving water?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. Well, that part, it was sort of.
Kind of calm?
It was moving a little bit, but on down there it was swift. But I've been to swim in April, and it is cold. But we didn't mind it. You 10-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy, 13-year-old boy, they don't care. And when summer got there, it was real warm. And I went swimming there till I was probably about 15, 16 years old.
After many, many years of working, I'm sure there have been some times that were funny, or times that you had a really good time when you're working, coworkers that made you laugh. So can you describe some of what that might have been like?
Well, when I was talking about place where you worked at, enjoy yourself, and you had a good time, and it wasn't boring. And when I was working at Square D in Lexington, that's where we made electrical switch boxes. And some of them guys they had big ducts that go through the factory. That's where the air conditioning came through in the heat. And them ducts was so big you could walk on top of them. They were square. And them guys get up there, and they put that water on top of them ducts, and it'd be warm. 5-gallon buckets at a time. And sometime when you go underneath them big ducts, you'd be right underneath of them. But sometime you'd be on either side of it, but they could easily throw water on you. And I wasn't the only one that got soaked with water. One time I was going through there, I was driving a forklift. That was my job. And somebody threw a whole 5-gallon bucket of water on me. And I got off my forklift and went to the bathroom. And the general foreman, he seen me, and he looked at me and said, "Dishman," said, how come you wet like that? I said, well, I called him Mr. Morris. I said, somebody back there, those ducks just poured a 5-gallon bucket of water on my head. And he said, "You know who it was?" I said, "No, I don't know who it was." And I had an idea, but I couldn't prove it. There was one guy there, he was just all the time putting pranks, and that same guy, they finally made him foreman. And he got so bad they take away from him. And he was the type of guy, just what they call a brown noser. You know what I mean? Would suck up to the boss, but he was general foreman.
But didn't they water bomb other people?
Oh yeah, yeah. And this one guy, he was a janitor. He was getting ready about almost 5 minutes to quitting time, and he come through there, and he was on a sweeper, and someone, it looked like a wash tub full, and that sweeper, it knocked that sweeper out. It drowned the motor, and he was soaking wet. And that guy just sat there. I knew if I believe if he knew who it was, he'd probably killed him. He sat there and didn't say a thing for a while, and then he finally got off of it, and they come and pulled the sweeper off because it wouldn't run. That water drowned the motor out. And they would put water on them machines, and when it turned over, he would pour water on you. He'd done stuff like that. Yeah, and you never did know who it was, and other things, you know. And one time, there's one guy, he was always big hurry. He was sitting there waiting for that bell to run, then he'd take off, and he'd be the first one to clock out. And one day, somebody he took the handle off. He had that bucket somewhere where you just pick it up, and take off. And so someone pulled it full of scrap metal and took the handles off of it. When he got that, we were just waiting for him to see it because we knew it happened. And when he got that lid, he got that handle, he pulled off, every bit went right to the floor. That was the funniest thing I ever seen. Boy, he didn't get out that day on the first.
That was Square D?
Yeah.
What about FMC? Was there tricks?
No, he didn't do nothing like that, you know.
They
Never did know him to do it like that.
They didn't allow that
Well, I don't remember. I don't remember. Huh?
What about at Asplin?
No, nothing like that. The Square D was bad about it. I don't say we got anything done, but we always got a quota. The one machine run. You know what my quota was at night? About 3,000 parts a night, and I'd do 4,000, but I didn't get nothing extra for it. Then I still had time to mess around, cause it's easy done. I set the machine up, Les, and it run off copper parts. In the copper, it come in big roll. That roll was that big. Look there, and it'd take you about 3 hours to rope one and run them out. And put it on there. I set the machine up and everything else, and it formed that part. And that die come down, and it do like that, like a step. Then it would do the little other things too, make holes in it. And the jobs that I'd done, it was okay. It would pass the inspection. But the other part, it run through another machine, and they'd always fail on that one. And they finally had to resign that part off. When they resigned it again, it cut my part out. And they was always trying to do something, make something more efficient. But it did. When they done it the other way, cut my part out, and done it the other way, it got the job done. It would work better.
If I asked you what your proudest moment at work would be, what would that be?
My proudest jobs that I've done at work.
Or any moment.
Well,
like a promotion, or when you retired.
Well, when I had one job at Linkbelt, when I went to Linkbelt, and it was entirely different work, and I'd done it before. I had to start all over, learn it all over. It was machining. It was more skilled work. You had to do more precision type work. It was grinding, turning parts, machining, and stuff like that. At Square D, it was dies. It did different. It was totally different. It's totally different. And it's lay work. It's link belt. And I had one job. It was a big lay, and it was run off of tapes. What do you call it? What would you call it?
Automatic.
Well, it's automatic, but you run a tape, and the tape would do the work, but you had to set the machine up, and you had to fill all that in before you could do it. You had to get your dimension just right. And there's one job. It was a part about that long and about that big around. And it would first turn it and form it. It would go like this, like that, That thing come down, look at it, Les, it come down, go back, it'd take about 50,000 time off, 50, 60,000. More than that big strings coming off her, you know how far to go. You know, you'd always leave about 60,000 to get your finished cut. It'd allow you to do that. And he'd get that, then they come up there and zerp, zerp, zerp. And then when you turn it around, it'd do the same thing. And the last operation, it was called Acme thread. I never heard of it till I started there. You put that tool that done that, and it would go down, and it'd go down in the middle of it. It'd be about that much, and he'd keep doing that till it got the thing, and when you had a big old part, you just screw it on there, and if it's sloppy, you know the part wasn't no good. You could tell that how the part fit. It was worked on, and that was fascinating how that thing done that. Just fascinating. But if you got that big strings, it'd cut your hand off. You better put your hand down there. Cause big strings of steel. And you know, just all that, you know, just like that. And that you didn't do too many of them. You do about 5 or 6 of them a year. That's all you do.
And you were proud of that work?
Yeah, it was fascinating how it done it.
How long did it take you to pick that up?
Oh, when I first got on that machine, I said the boss put me on it, and I said to myself, I never learned that. Never learned that. I never run the NC machine before. And guy he stayed with me a day, and inside of a month, I was doing as good as any of them.
That made you pretty proud?
Oh yeah. I never done work like that before.
Yeah.
But anybody just couldn't do it, you know, but I had problems with that machine one time, and I don't know what happened. It run into something. It didn't do no damage to the machine. But I've seen some machines, it's square D with the whole rams, the whole top of it just cracked. One time at Square D, I was setting up a new part. It was aluminum, and it was making this part like a comb. It had big long handles to it like that. It was about that thick. And it had 3 or 4 big prongs on it, and I got it done where it's supposed to be. Took it up there I got everything straightened out, and set the die down and everything, tightened everything up, and got a good part. Then you Square D, you had to get the first part. You had to get it approved by QA. But link belt, you was your own QA. You didn't. Every once in a while they come around and check it, you know, but you was your own QA at Square D. Link belt. And you know, if you didn't, you couldn't have got that job. But Square D, they had them QAs, quality control. You'd have to get the first piece before you could run the part. And I'd got my first piece on a brand new die. And I got it, come back, started running it, and I run a bunch of them. And something happened, one of them stuck up on that die. I didn't know it. And it came down and it cracked that die, brand new die. I told the supervisor, I said, this is what happened. And he was a good guy to work with. He gave no problem at all. And there was one at Link Belt I had problem with, but he got fired and I worked out long enough to retire.
Okay, Dad. Have there ever been any famous people like actors, musicians, politicians that you've seen or met before?
Well, I've never met them, but I've seen them. Actors. You know, you said any big actors I've seen in my lifetime. I never met them, but I've seen them. Been close by them, about 20 feet.
And who was that?
Well, one of them was in Paris. 2 of them. They were making a movie down there about 30 years ago, maybe 35 years ago. I think her name was Black Beauty. And they filmed a lot of it around the courthouse there on Main Street. And I'd go down there every day and watch them film it. And it'd be hundreds of them down there. And one of them that I seen was old guy that played Festus on Gunsmoke. I was probably about 10 feet from him. And on the other street, same movie. I can't remember if it was the same day or not. And yeah, Van Johnson, he was an old actor. He mostly played in war movies, but he never did play in no westerns. I never did see him. He played in some kind of detective, something like that. But a lot of them were war movies. And he was, like I said, he was in the 40s and maybe mid 50s. And when I visited you one time in Marina Del Rey, me and you went to a drugstore one day, and I seen I can't think of his name. My goodness. Walter Matthau. He was going up the steps, and I was looking at him, and he looked around and looked straight up to me. And I didn't get to talk to him, but that was him. I know it was.
Didn't you also see Stacy Keach?
Yeah, and you remember that time we went at Chinatown in Los Angeles? Mm-hmm. We went to Chinatown, and we was walking around there, and he was coming through there at Stacy Keach. He was showing somebody, people, something. He just kept pointing to him, and I seen him about 15 or 20 feet from me. And them's all the ones I've seen.
What's your favorite?
Then I've seen a couple of actors come down at Pineville in the theater. They would come down there. They put on shows, and one of them I believe was Rod Cameron, and another one was Lasher Rule. You remember Lasher Rule? He had that whip.
I heard the name.
Yeah, he would play them old B movies. I seen them two in Pineville at the Rolling Theater.
What about concerts or?
Well, I've seen. I've seen two or three at a concert. One time I was dating a woman after me and your mama split up. She was a beautiful woman. She's from Georgetown. Black hair, you know, and I'd like to see her again just to see how she's doing. And her name is Martha Johnson. And we'd go out to eat last, and she wouldn't let me buy her dinner at all. She'd say, let's go, what they call it? Dutch. And I'd buy mine, she'd buy hers. She wouldn't take no dinner from me. And one day me and her went to a concert over, and she probably paid her way too then. That's the way she was.
Okay, Dad, you were telling me about a concert that you went to see a while back that had Merle Haggard in it. Why don't you tell me that story? Okay, tell me that story from start to finish.
Well, we went, me and the lady I was with, I would call her a lady. She didn't. She acted like a lady, you know, way she was with me. And anyway, we went to that concert, and them two different singers got up and done their act. And this guy got up, Neil Young. I never heard of him before in my life.
Who was he?
Neil Young. And boy, everybody in that at Rupp Arena stood up, and I said, who in the world is this guy that's getting this kind of ovation? And she told me who it was. That's the reason she went, because she wanted to see this Neil Young. I didn't know. She just, I just know we was going to the concert.
She knew who he was?
Yeah, she had to know it, and she knew who it was. And he got up, he played about an hour and a half, and he got a standing ovation for seemed like 10 minutes. And he had about 5 or 6 guitars he played. And after that, I knew who he was. And another time, I went 2 or 3 more times after that. And one time I seen Conway Tweedy, and I can't remember where. I was right down on the floor of that one. I put my feet right on the floor. I was that close to him. I probably used that to sink for him.
Is that a good show?
Yeah, shoot, I can't think of that anymore.
You ever see Hank Williams Jr. or Hank Williams? I mean.
No.
Sons of the Pioneers.
No.
Rogers.
No. Just seen him on TV.
Clark.
No, none of them.
What about when you went to Branson? Who'd you see at Branson?
I seen Roy Rogers' son. I talked to him.
Oh yeah. What about? Did you see anybody play at Branson?
Well, they call them I forget what they call themselves.
Did you see?
I seen the statue of Trigger.
Did you see Jim Stafford?
Who?
Jim Stafford at Branson?
Yeah, I seen him. Yeah.
And the guy who did Ahab the Arab?
Yeah, that was Stafford, wasn't it?
That wasn't Jim Stafford.
Yeah. What's his name?
Yeah.
I seen that. He was that guy's a funny guy. Probably the best concert I've ever seen.
Yeah.
At first he came out on the stage like a horse, but it was a fake horse, and it throwed him. And that you remember that big heavyset woman played with him, sung with him? There was a big heavyset woman played with him on the concert on TV, and she was with him. But that was a good show.
Was she funny, or was it just him?
Well, she didn't do much, but she was in the show, you know.
I've known that you've always been a fan of cars and trucks. So won't you tell me a little bit about some of the more interesting cars or trucks that you've owned in your life, or some of the ones that have kind of stood out from all the others?
Well, talking about cars that I bought when I was young. The first car I ever bought was a 48 Plymouth. And it was solid black, and I had a lot of good fun in that car. Paid $60 for it. You imagine that, $60 for a car? And today that car probably cost you $30,000. And
how long did you have that car?
oh, probably about a year. I ran it. I went one time to about 15 miles from my hometown, and the gears would stick on it. And if it done it in the daytime, I could get underneath the car and move a little leverage, and it would unstick the gears. But one night it was at nighttime, probably about 10 o'clock at night, and I was 18 years old then, and I went up to see my girlfriend and started on my way back to Pineville. You know that place where we stopped the other day at that restaurant? It's about 5 or 6 miles on up that road, north of that, on the same road. Same road, and my gears got stopped on it, and I didn't have no flashlight with me, so I had to run that car about 15 miles in second gear.
You burned it out?
Yeah, when I got to Pineville, it messed the transmission up or something, so I sold it to my brother-in-law for a little nothing. Practically gave it away. Well, after that, I bought a 1950 Ford convertible. Paid $90 for it. It was 5 years old when I bought it. Let's see, no, it was 8 years old. Paid $90 for it. You imagine paying $90 for a nice looking car. And that thing I'd go up that Holland Road, and it was a narrow, crooked. I'd just go up that road, it's amazing I'm alive today. God was with me. And I'd go up them roads, run them curves, going so fast, just to hear the tires squeal.
And who would you have with you then? Your friends or girlfriends?
Well, I had a girlfriend with me, mostly myself, going up there to see her. But when I was with her, I didn't go that fast. And that car, it was green, a real light green, and it had leather seat covers. I think they was beige. And the driver's seat, the what do you call it? It keeps it from going back. What would you call that?
The seat adjuster?
Well, it keeps it from going all the way down flat. You know, you know how you bring the seat up this little bit this way and that way and it locks.
Yeah, that's the adjuster. Yeah.
Well, it was messed up, and I had a stick that would prop that seat up. And one day I was going down the road about 30 miles an hour. I just got in it, and that seat fell down, and that thing came down. And I still holding on that steering wheel, and I pulled myself up. It's a miracle I hadn't run into anything, but I didn't. I stopped it and put that seat back again.
That sounds like the.
I know.
That sounds like the car that you had that had a hole in the floorboard.
Yeah.
2 foot of snow.
They was something I could have done if it's different, you know. But the older you get, the wiser you get. I could probably put a brick underneath that and it would have held it. I didn't think enough about it.
You want to talk about your Ford F-150 for a little bit?
Well, let me tell you about a 52 Chevrolet. I had a 50 Chevrolet and a 52. Boy, that 52 Chevrolet, that was beautiful. And I took the muffler off of that one time, make it go loud. And I had that pipe too close to the bottom of the floorboard. And we was going back to work, going from Pineville to up here, somewhere up in around Paris area, or Maysville, maybe somewhere in that area. And I remember we was around London, and one of them boys back there, a guy said, well, they was old men. Well, at 45 years old, we thought they was old. And one said, my feet's getting hot. And then I began to smell something, and I knew what it was. And we stopped and pulled that carpet back, and boy, there's a flame of fire went all the way to the ceiling. Yeah. And I let the car cool down, and I got down there and took probably a wrench or something, and pulled that pipe down, and it was okay then. But it made that car sound loud, you know. But I should have never done it, you know.
I don't think I've ever heard that story before.
Yeah, oh, I can remember that. Them guys said, my feet's getting hot. Then I knew what was wrong. And let's see. And after that, I got two 55 Fords, and one of them, when I had that wreck with your mom. Then after that, I can't remember. I think I got a 57 Chevrolet, and it was a green too.
That was the sort of light green one, the seafoam green one.
It was Bel Air, but it had the post in the middle of it.
Already in Paris at that point.
Yeah, I was in Paris. Yeah.
We've seen photos of that.
Huh?
We've seen photos of that one.
Yeah.
What about your F-150? You want to talk about that one that you
The Ford I got now.
The one you have now.
Well,
When did you buy that one?
I bought that about 2 or 3 years after me and your mom split up. I got it in '88, but it's '89. And I've had that.
So that makes it almost probably 45 years old at this point.
Well, no, let's see.
30, 35, 36.
36, almost 36 years old.
You still drive it?
Yeah, well, it started up just like that, and it run just smooth. but I got transmission problems. I get it there and put it in gear, and say if I'm going to first or second, that motor, I'm standing trying to get gear, but it races. I've had a bunch of cars.
Okay, Dad, we're going to wrap up. So if you have any advice you want to give me now that I'm still a young man, and I've got a full life ahead of me, what would that advice be?
Well, you said anything that I'd asked you the best thing for you to do. I would say start going to church and serving God. You can't be perfect in life. We're gonna make mistakes. Jesus one time he went into a synagogue one time, and these people was selling everything. And you know what he done? He got a whip and whipped him and run him out of the synagogue. He said, this is not a place for other words. It said by other words. It said you're making this like a den of thieves. And they were selling all kinds of stuff, playing stuff, you know. And that's advice I'd give you. We can't be perfect in life. We can strive it, but we're not perfect. You're gonna make your mistakes like everybody does. That's my advice.
Okay. Thank you, Dad. Want to say goodbye?
Good night. I'll try to do it again some other time. Next time you come in. I hope I'm around and hope you're around. That light's about to blind me. Ada's getting tired too.